There are a ton of instruments out there that are built to the specs of fine furniture, they look beautiful, but they have no business actually being performed with. Today, we're looking at a drum that is an absolute engineering marvel and asking ourselves, is it fit for the snare stand or does it belong on a pedestal? So what do? We put it through its paces, but we were completely unprepared for what came out of it. 9 times out of 10, the first thing that we notice when we see a new drum is the badge. And this badge is noteworthy in its own. It's machined from the same metal as the lugs, it is understated, it is beautiful, and it tells you exactly what you're getting into in terms of the fit, the finish, and the aesthetic of this instrument. If there's one thing that we have been a little put off by over the last few years, it's companies getting increasingly garish and complicated with the badge design, and something that just speaks to a simple, clear, and intentional aesthetic really draws our attention. This drum is a 5 by 14 inch dimension, and the shell is a single steam bent ply of Bubinga. What that means is that it's not a plywood shell, it's a single piece of wood that is steamed until it's pliable and bent into the shape so that it resonates as a unit. There's lots more details to get into, but first, let's hear this drum at a medium tuning. This tuning may sound higher than your idea of medium. Some of that is afforded to the fact that this is a pretty shallow drum, but at the same time, at this tension, it has a much throatier sound than we were expecting. The overall tone of the instrument is a little bit darker than some other drums of this dimension tuned in this way, and it also has a very powerful and dry voice, which sounds amazing for ghost notes as well as aggressive rim shots. Let's hear a little bit more at this medium tuning. One of the most noticeable and unique features of this drum is the snare throw-off. We have worked with this throw-off in a previous video when we had another drum in from this company. The main feature of this throw-off is that it doesn't include a tensioning knob in addition to the portion that engages and disengages the wires. Instead, the NATO throw-off, as in not another throw-off, just has a handle that stays in place at whatever tension you turn it to, so you can use any point along the way in engaging the mechanism as your stopping point. This also allows you to move through snare tensions fluidly without having to operate 2 different parts of the mechanism. Check it out. This design also allows us to easily move through tensions when we're trying to decide on a tension and experimenting at a single tuning for the drum. Check this out. This drum also features heavy-duty cast bronze hoops, which give us a really powerful rim shot, as well as a really powerful cross stick. In experimenting with the ease of changing the tension of the wires, we also discovered a cool feature when playing cross stick, which is significantly looser wires, giving us almost like a reverb tail on the cross stick. Listen to this. After listening to this medium tuning, we started to get a little concerned about how much higher we could really go since this is already pretty high. But before we get to the high tuning, let's check out a low tuning with this drum. Another surprise that we weren't expecting. This drum sounds enormous at a low tuning and has a wonderfully controlled rim shot, especially when you get the drum right in the center. It also has a really broad range of usable tensions on the snare wires that we were able to explore because of the ease of using this mechanism. Another feature afforded by the very hard wood shell and these hoops that we have here is it's very loud even at this lower tuning, so any concerns you might have, and any that we had, about not having enough power at a low tuning were assuaged immediately. Some of this control and focus is owed to the fairly substantial reinforcement rings that are mounted on the inside of the shell of this drum. Lots of drums have re-rings. These are some of the thicker ones that we've ever seen, and they really bring the tone into focus and help to control a lot of the overtones. Additionally, this drum features intercut 45-degree edges with a roundover on the top, so we don't have a super sharp contact with the collar of the heads. This contributes both to the throatiness and to the tuning range. We end up having a very controlled sound that's still powerful and has a very punchy center note no matter what range we tune it in. This is a great feature for a shallow drum like this because it means that in lower tunings we can retain the power, and at higher or even very high tunings like what's coming, we still hold onto that body and don't end up thinning out and getting too pingy and bright. One feature we haven't mentioned yet is the snare bed. The design of a snare bed can really affect the response of the wires and the overall experience of playing a given drum. We've had more than one encounter with a drum or two over the years that were rendered almost unplayable either by a poorly cut snare bed or actually just the wrong kind of snare bed for the design of the instrument. The snare beds on this drum are not particularly wide. They span basically between the space of two of the lugs. They're a little bit deeper than average, which affords us really good snare response and allows the wires to play very evenly along the full width of the head. All of these features that we've just mentioned benefit this lower tuning very well, but as you're about to see, they also play into a very, very, very high tuning. Before we dive into the ultra high tuning, a couple of words about facets of this drum that are affecting how it behaves at all of these tunings. To achieve a given pitch with an 8-lug drum, each of the tension rods is going to have to be tighter than it would need to be if we had a 10-lug drum because the tension is distributed over less screws. Additionally, this drum features custom-made brass lugs. In fact, all of the hardware on this is custom made, and these brass lugs are no different. They are actually beveled on the inside where they meet the shell to further kiss them up against that wood, which both renders no need for a grommet there and also keeps any debris or anything else from getting into that gap over time, which could lead to damage. One thing about aesthetics when it comes to boutique heirloom level instruments like this too, you're looking at bronze hoops and brass lugs and brass tension rods that are all the exact same color. This is a feat of engineering that gives the drum a beautiful, holistic look while also using the appropriate metal and density of metal for each of these different parts. We felt like this is necessary to mention because this is one of the things that is overlooked by even the highest level drums being manufactured right now. And having two colors of metal on a drum that are so close that they clash, it's kind of a fashion faux pas, and we like to see that this one didn't do that. Now, without further ado, let's get after that high tuning. My immediate feelings are this is taking me to Stuart Copeland land, peak Stuart Copeland. It's also a beautiful hip hop sound. It could be a beautiful punk sound, but the main thing is it has body, even though it is tuned ridiculously high. It's worth putting in a reminder here that none of the audio you're hearing today has any post-production on it whatsoever, which means that this throaty, powerful, dry, and punchy quality is going to set you up for success, no matter what sort of mix you might want to do with this instrument once it's been recorded. A quick word about volume also, because we startled ourselves a couple of times in the room today with this drum at all three tunings. It has the capacity to be incredibly loud, not just for a wood drum, but for any snare drum at all. That's owing in part to every single feature of this drum. And when you put together components that work in concert this well, you get an instrument that behaves from the quietest possible ghost note to as much energy as you can put into it. Let's hear a little more at this tuning, and then we'll get into exactly how we've set this drum up. For today's demonstrations, we have a coated G12 batter head. This is a single ply coated head with a slightly thicker film than your standard 10mm run-of-the-mill batter head. This means that at the higher tuning, it's under slightly more tension than a 10mm head would be to achieve that same pitch. This thicker batter head coupled with our 8-lug setup on this drum means that each of these tension rods is under even more tension than it would be with another batter head. And did we mention before that in addition to all of the hardware being custom, the tension rods are also custom designed and manufactured especially for Sonique? For the snare side head, we are using a snare side 300, fairly straightforward, and it allows this drum to speak at all of the tensions, no matter how high or how low we want to go. Lastly, we have custom pro snare wires on the bottom, 20 strands, and they are fixed with ribbons on either side. If there was one thing that we would change about this drum, it's actually just the way that the wires are mounted, because with Custom Pro wires, they have a proprietary mounting system that allows the break angle of the wires to be exactly right to seat them flat against the head, and that's the way you want them for optimum response rather than using other kinds of mounting systems. With the ribbons that are installed on the drum right now, they're pulling the wires directly straight across rather than the original mounting design for Custom Pros, which pulls the end plates toward the head of the drum, giving us complete contact. Sonique's approach to drum building really shows that they have an unbelievable attention to detail and are super meticulous both with how the whole design works together and the tiniest aspects of the fit and finish of the instrument. The tung oil finish on the Bubinga shell is absolutely gorgeous. It gives off an air of fine furniture and looks like something that will age beautifully over time. Every piece that is affixed to that shell is engineered to the tightest tolerances, and every single angle is set up perfectly to function, making tuning easy, making changing of tuning easy, and giving you a wonderful playing experience as well. A perfect example is the lugs themselves. They don't contain any kind of swiveling movement. It's straight tension rod into the lug, and they are perfectly aligned, which allowed me to tune the drum up super easily and make micro adjustments to get it exactly where we wanted it to be. This instrument is an immaculate piece of engineering. It's also a beautiful piece of art, and to top it off, it sounds phenomenal and has a very unique voice as well. It would be equally at home in the stable of a session player, a collector who loves a beautiful instrument, or any player out there who just wants to marvel at how perfectly a drum can be put together. Follow the link below to learn more about this drum from their Studio series, as well as every other offering they have.